members of the lower classes have recently been murdered.
The files were kept hidden.
My God.
I found them only by chance.
Still playing the detective, are we, Miss Howard?
Why does our killer do what he does?
Given certain circumstances, we're all capable of violence.
The Alienist premieres January 22nd at 9 on TNT.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is Trucking with Authority. I'm your host, Kenny Long, and for the next hour, consider me your navigator on your journey to success in business, especially the trucking business. We've got a lot of callers on the line already. We are streaming live on Facebook, streaming live on YouTube, and of course, Blog Talk Radio. Call the number at the bottom of your screen, 917-889-9924. We're taking your calls today because every week I get on this show and I'm excited because things are happening in this business right now. Things are fantastic. The market is great. Freight is moving. It's good for drivers. It's good for carriers. Great for owner-operators. If you've got your own authority, you are absolutely, it's like having a blank check right now. And if you are a broker and you're good at your job, this is a good market for you too. But the brokers that thought that this was free lunch and they've been getting away with it for the past couple of years, they are struggling right now. So this is some awesome stuff to see. I'm excited. So get on the line. Call the number at the bottom of your screen, 917-889-9924. I've had a lot of questions over the past few days. I almost couldn't make it to do the show today. We are running a half an hour later than usual, but I've had a lot of questions because the market is so phenomenal. People are making big decisions on what to do now, how to move forward and progress, take the next step or the first step in a lot of cases to succeed and reach their goals. Had a lot of questions asked through Facebook and through emails, different forums I'm monitoring at all times. And a lot of them right now are people that are seeing what's happening in the marketplace, seeing the industry, seeing the changes, and they want to take advantage of it now. Strike while the iron is hot, make hay while the sun shines, whatever you want to say. They're ready to move forward with their business. I talked to people that are retiring from other jobs this week that want to buy a truck and become an owner-operator. They think now is the time. They want to finish out the last 5 to 10 years of their working life in the trucking business. They think this is a great opportunity, and I agree. I see people that are in their early 20s getting started in the business. They want to go to driver school and become a truck driver because they see the opportunities that present themselves, which is a complete 180 from just a couple of years ago. We're seeing people that have been company drivers for a long time that want to improve their situation. They're ready to buy their first truck. We see people that own a truck that have been owner-operators for a while. They're getting ready to move to a new carrier, get into a new situation. Maybe they're on a mileage lease or they're not seeing the rates that they'd like to see, or they're forced dispatch. They'd want to be more in control. They're getting ready to move to a new carrier. Great opportunities there as well. Or we see people that have been doing this for a long time, familiar with the industry, know the marketplace, understand negotiations, understand enough about the broker market that they want to branch out and they're ready to take on the extra responsibilities and become their own carrier, get their own authority. Also, an awesome opportunity and a great time for that. There's a lot going on, a lot of opportunity out there, a lot of questions at each one of those levels on what do I do first? Where do I start? Why should I do it? Who should I go to? Who should I talk to? Where do I get the information? Those are the types of things that we want to talk about today. If you have anything that you'd like to add, if you are in one of those situations, call the number at the bottom of your screen. The show is yours tonight, 917-889-9924. When you get on the line, Elizabeth is in the other room screening calls. Press number 1. That will bring you into the green room where she can see you. Basically, it's like raising your digital hand. She can bring you in and screen you. It's not going to put you directly on air, so don't worry about that. I know a lot of people get cold feet. They don't want to just jump in and be live without some screening first. She can get your questions, and if you're just too gun-shy and you just don't want to come on the air at all, she can just get your questions off the air and relay those to me, and I'll try to get an answer for you. We have several people already on. A few of the people that I see have been asking questions over the past few days. They're on the phone lines now. We'll bring them on here in a few minutes. A couple other people that she needs to screen first. We'll let her go through a few of these. We can talk about anything. The market is just booming right now for a lot of reasons. And a lot of reasons that I don't know that everybody was anticipating. Certainly shippers and brokers, again, if they were not prepared for this, they've been caught with their pants down. We have different segments of the industry that don't quite know how to keep up with what's happening. The mileage pay type situations right now are they're struggling a little bit because owner-operators are looking to go elsewhere. Drivers are looking for better pay. As rates go up, owner-operators are all about talking about better rates, improving their bottom line, running their business more efficiently, and that gets drivers interested in buying or leasing a truck. Now is the time. But don't make a rash decision. Don't jump into the pool without checking to see if there's water in it first. Make sure that you do the research and understand what you're getting into. I have definitely over the years coached people that, and to be honest, over the past few days, I have talked to people that don't necessarily know what they're getting into. And again, they're ready to jump and they haven't looked to see if there's water in the pool. And they don't want to ask. They don't want to ask the questions. I try to give as much advice as I can, but you have to want the advice. You have to be able to listen to and be open to receiving before it makes a difference. And there's been a lot of that because some people think this business is easy. And in some respects, relative to some other businesses, just driving the truck, that aspect of it, it is easy. So people can be misled. But there's a lot more to it than just driving the truck. And that's what we talk about here on this show. We've got more questions coming in. Again, we're streaming live on Facebook, streaming live on YouTube. Starting a little late today. Got questions coming in from every angle right now. I am going to hold off on reading questions until the end of the show. So if you have anything that you'd like to make sure that you get answered, make sure you call the number on the bottom of your screen. Or if you're listening to the stream live, it's 917-889-9924. If you're driving and you're watching this on YouTube or you're watching this on Facebook, hopefully you're not actually watching the videos while you're driving. But I know a lot of people will listen to the live stream, flip the screen over so they can't see it and just listen. It's even better if you call the number, 917-889-9924. Call it on your phone. You can listen on your phone line. You won't use your data. And if you have a question, just hit 1 on your keypad, and we can bring you on the air. The show is a lot better when it's not just me up here. So I welcome questions, comments, good or bad. If you don't agree with me, let's talk about that as well. I don't mind. I am not going to hang up on you. I am not going to ridicule you, call you names, anything like that. I am open to hearing your opinion as well. Part of learning is to hear all sides of the story. So if you are listening to us live, it is Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. We are, 7:38 now. We got started at 7:30. The shows will start streaming the recorded shows on LNJ Radio. I am setting that up to stream the recorded shows on Thursday. So if you missed the live shows, you can listen to the recordings at LNJ Radio. Download the TuneIn app and you can find the LNJ Radio channel, or go to lnjradio.com. All right. I guess we will start at the top. It is a new year. We talked about that a little last week about the fantastic rates. And let me just back up a little bit. Over the holidays, you never know what will happen. And the holidays stayed strong. It stayed strong the week before Christmas, stayed strong the week, and it was a little awkward because the holidays landed on Mondays. Christmas was on a Monday, and 1 week later, New Year's on a Monday. And whenever the holidays land on a Monday like that, that week in between, people don't really know what to do. If it lands on a Thursday or Friday, typically people take that week off, or they're closed on Thursday and Friday, or make it a long weekend, what have you. But when it lands on a Monday, a lot of businesses don't know what to do. So we were finding that some businesses were just closed for the whole week. Brokers may have been closed for the whole week. Some were working, some weren't. Rates were all over the board. People didn't really know what to do, what to expect. Turns out that that was a pretty strong week. Averages were very high. In fact, ticked up a little bit. Typically during the holidays, especially Christmas and New Year's being the biggest holidays of the year, because a lot of people want to go home, those last-minute loads that still need to get out the door. Now, mind you, a lot of businesses are trying to get their inventory off the books for the end of the quarter and of the end of the year. So there was a lot of shipment still happening during that last week of the year after Christmas. And a lot of drivers still wanted to be home. So the capacity was down, and there was still a good demand for the truck. So rates were strong the week prior to the holidays, stronger still during the holidays. Typically, they plateau or even dip a little the week following the holidays, and that is absolutely not what we saw this week. We just got the averages in. It typically comes out on Tuesday nights late after this show or early Wednesday morning, but this morning it came out very early. It may have even come out late last night. The averages from last week, finaling out on Saturday morning, rates hit new records that have, just unbelievable records. Vans at $230 a mile. Reefers, I believe it was $271 per mile, and this is averages across the country. Phenomenal rates. Flatbeds were pretty stable, but flatbeds have been strong for 6 months or better before the hurricanes of 2017 started hitting. Flatbeds have been strong and stable up through the winter, and they typically start tapering off in late fall. So we're seeing flatbeds strong. We're seeing vans extremely strong. We're seeing reefers extremely strong. Now, I follow all of the Facebook groups, the load boards. I'm also a broker, so I see things and I hear things from both sides of the aisle on this. And there are some brokers that have no clue what's happening. I think there are a lot of sources such as this show. There's other podcasts that really help with carriers understanding how to negotiate and how to improve their rates. But when it comes to brokers, really it's more about the compliance or building the relationships with shippers and things like that. But they don't spend a lot of time explaining these spot market spikes like this. So some brokers that, especially the newer brokers that don't understand it, they're being caught with their pants down. They've bid rates too low. Some are taking a loss, so the freight's not moving. They're likely going to lose customers. The older, more experienced brokers are making a killing right now because they were able to explain to the shippers what needed to happen, or they were able to establish trucks with long-term relationships, and they can still move the freight at the rates that the shippers need them to move it to. And they've been able to weather the storm. Some of these brokers, the smaller ones that just are the newer ones, they may not make it. They may not make it. That being said, we need to be extremely careful. All of us as carriers need to be extremely careful because a broker right now that is paying out of pocket or making just minimal margins may not be here in 30 days when your bills come due. So be very, very careful with that. Now, even if you're factoring, even if you're taking quick pays, Remember, if you make that delivery today and the quick pay doesn't come in until tomorrow, you're still extending credit. Be very careful. Now, I'm also seeing some situations where contracts, the broker carrier agreements, I spend a lot of time on this show talking about how important it is to read the contracts. I've shown you my red pen, and we redline out so much of these contracts. We turn 20 pages into 2 pages. We redline so much stuff in these contracts, and it's horrible. Most brokers have agreed to do it, even in the soft markets, because they didn't even understand why they would need some of this nonsense in their contracts. But now they're going back and they're saying, hey, we have an opportunity to squeeze a few pennies out of here, or we have an opportunity to delay payments to these carriers. They don't have the financial cash flow to be able to make the quick pays and to make even the 15, 21, 30-day pay periods that a lot of people may have been used to, or a lot of brokers had kind of established that precedent. They may not be able to cash flow that anymore. So they're looking back at their contracts and they're trying to find ways to get out of it or to hold carriers more responsible and what have you. So it's more important than ever to negotiate hard on the contracts, just setting up. Now, as rates go up, carriers tend to work with more and more brokers. As when rates are steady or lower, carriers tend to work with a handful of brokers. Now, I know a lot of carriers jump around. They work with anybody that's got a load. But in a softer market, typically, carriers work with the same broker or only a handful of brokers throughout the year, and then sporadically work with others. But they have a core group that they've established a relationship with. Now that we are in this new market, it's more and more tempting to jump out of that core group and go out and just grab everything you can get. And I'm not against that. I am not against that. Get what you can get, make hay while the sun shines, but be very, very careful that 2 things don't happen. Number 1, don't burn the bridges with the relationships that you do have, because the market will always turn back the other way. And your customers and the brokers, they will remember if you burn them. Number 2, if you're setting up with a lot of new brokers, again, go back, be very diligent about the contracts. They need trucks. So if they need trucks bad enough, they're willing to negotiate harder, and it's not just about money. Negotiate on those contracts as well. So make sure that you're paying attention to that stuff. If Elizabeth, if you're listening to me, I see we have a couple more calls that still need to be screened, but I am going to go ahead and start bringing some of these calls on. Let's see. We are going to go to Matt in Texas. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks, Kenny. Thanks for having me on. I think Elizabeth sent you some questions I had over. If you've got those, if not, I can just ask you again. The first question I wanted to ask you about is, when is a good time to apply for your authority?
I started doing this show September of 2014. In my very first show, I opened with, now is the best time to get your authority. Because 2014, we were closing out the year with phenomenal rates. September of 2014, you're going into the Christmas rush. It was a great time to get your authority. So we went into 2015. I started opening the shows with, now is a great time to get your authority. Because January, February 2015, the rate started to dip a little, but it was a great time because you can get your feet wet and understand the market before things pick up and level out in the summertime. Summertime hit. I said, now is a great time to get your authority because opportunity is out there. Make it happen. Fall came along. Same thing. Winter came along. 2016 came along. Same thing. 2017, I've been saying the same thing every single time. 2018, I think if you would have listened to me in 2014, you'd be in a better situation. Start now. You start immediately. 2018.
That's why I called today.
The way the market is right now, if you're on the fence or if you're ready to get your own authority, do it. Make it happen. Now
I'm ready, man. I've leased a handful of carriers, and I think you was at Landstar at one time, and so I've been down that road before. I've got the equipment. I'm looking for more money. and it's just not where it's not being leased onto a carrier. It's not where it's at for me anymore. So,
Right.
my next question was how do you know if you're ready? Like, if you when you talk to people, and they say, oh, I want to get my authority, and there's that level of they're just talking it up, and then there's people that are really serious, like, hey, we're going to do this. How can you tell if someone's ready or not? Like, just by talking to them.
Just by talking to them, you can't. The attitude, you can certainly tell if their attitude says that they're ready, but the attitude is only one aspect of it. Certainly, you have to have the positive attitude. You have to be an entrepreneur. You have to have the go get 'em and the willingness to do the hard work and make it happen. That you can hear talking to somebody, right? But there's a lot more to it. Do you have the motivation in the morning? Does this person you're talking to have the motivation to get up in the morning and do the billing and do the paperwork and keep the driver's files and follow up with accounts receivables and handle talking to various brokers and following up with brokers, building the relationships for yourself, getting the phone calls at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because you own the business now. You are the go-to person at all times when you get your own authority and one truck carrier. Those are all things that you need to take into account. So are you ready for that? Also, financially,
Absolutely.
Financially, are you ready? Are you ready to handle going 30, 60, 90 days waiting on payment? A broker or a carrier, when you lease to a carrier, some carriers pay as soon as next day or 2 days or certainly weekly. By law, they have to pay within 2 weeks. So carriers don't pay any longer out than 2 weeks. Whereas if you get your own authority, look at a minimum of 30 days. 30 days, they'll write the check. They'll put it in the mail. You might figure another 2 weeks after that. So it could be 45 days. If you have, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 outstanding, especially the way the rates are right now, you could pretty easily, depending on your field, if you're grossing $10,000 per week, you could have $40,000 or $50,000 outstanding. Can you wait 30 or 60 days to get that money? There's a financial aspect to that.
Right. Okay, so you have to 30, 60 days out. Yeah.
And that's just to get paid. And then, of course, while you're waiting for that money, you have to still buy fuel for your truck. You still have to have your maintenance fund. You still have to make your payments. You still have to have money at home. You still have to make the car payment and the house payment. You have to keep the lights on at the house. So you still have to have all of that. So you do need to have a fund set aside at home. Now, said that to say this. There are other alternatives, and certainly a lot of people jump to factoring for that, but there are better options than just factoring. Factoring is one avenue that can take some of this off your plate, but it's very, very expensive. You need to understand factoring before you get into that. And if you want to go down that road, we can talk about that a little more. But, funding the business is a big part of it. Now, there's also other options like quick pays. Of course, that costs money too. Leaves some room for negotiation. If you want to negotiate quick pays with the brokers, you might be able to make that happen as well. So financing, I have known people that had nothing, not a penny to their name. They were in debt, and they bought a truck on credit cards, financed the whole business on credit cards, and made it happen, and made a success of it. I've also known people that have had.
Well, unfortunately, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Like,
okay.
So just kind of give you a snapshot. Like, I've got the equipment, I've got the trucks, I've got the trailers, and I can I've got the equipment, I've got the potential. What you're saying is I just don't have the extra cash flow to get my skin in the game.
Okay.
So I'd be like what you're saying is you'd have to put some of it on your credit card to get going.
Okay, and I know people that have made that successful, but that is by far the riskiest way to get this started. So when you're talking about are you ready to make this happen, the market and the industry is ready for you, but are you ready to jump in? In other words, there is water in the pool, the heat's on, and the water is nice, but do you know how to swim? That's the question, okay? So are you ready to jump in that pool? Are you ready to jump in?
Absolutely, let's do it.
And there are opportunities to make that work. I could explain a little more about factoring for you and explain a little more about cash flow, quick pays, and how the billing process works. Typically, that is the biggest shock for people that just get their authority is And I've honestly had people that had no idea what an invoice was. They got their own authority and pulled their first load and sent me a message and said, now what? What do I do? How do I get paid? Okay, so you have to send an invoice.
Right.
Typically, that's the stuff that the broker or the carrier does for you when you're leased to a carrier that a lot of owner-operators never see. There is a lot that goes on behind the scenes. There is a lot of paperwork. Now, do you have any help, or are you completely on your own doing this from the truck?
Absolutely. I have a fabulous new wife that's very supportive, and she says she's 100% behind me, and just like Elizabeth is for you, and she's like, let's do it, because she's on board. So
that helps a lot. So I can tell you that I've helped people that try to do this completely alone. It's very, very difficult. And, trying to keep up with all the phone calls and the paperwork and everything while you're on the road by yourself, trying to run the business, do the maintenance and keep up with all of that, and, do everything else that you'd have to, just driving the truck. By yourself, that's difficult. If you have someone at home that can help you with the billing, make some phone calls, maybe can help you with dispatching. Now, here's one mistake that some people make. If you're leased to a carrier, there are carriers out there, from myself, for example, with Patriot Star, excuse me, let me grab some water here.
No sweat.
All right, so with Patriot Star, we pay the owner-operator 80%. We don't back charge for insurance. We cover that, and we cover the load board. We do all the billing. We pay weekly, okay? Now, you're self-dispatched, but we assist with that. Now, with what a lot of people make a mistake of doing is they say, okay, I don't need to be leased to a carrier anymore. I want to go out on my own. They get their own authority, and then there's one carrier out, it's a carrier, not even a broker, out there that will hire you on with your own authority. They take 10%. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I don't even think it's legal the way they've got it set up. But what they're doing is they're helping you with dispatching. They're basically factoring all the money for you. And you still have to pay for all of your own insurance. You still have all the paperwork requirements. You still have all of the responsibilities. And this carrier is taking 10% off the top. And essentially they're not doing anything but brokering the load and possibly factoring some money. That would be a foolish way to go, okay, to get your own authority. So there are factoring companies out there that charge 5%. That would be horrible. So there are people will jump into this business, start factoring at 4 or 5%, then possibly hire a dispatch service that takes 5 to 10%. Then they, outsource their bookkeeping to an accountant at a couple $100 a month. And then they outsource, you name it. What ends up happening is just between the factoring and dispatching and the various other fees that they incur hiring other people to do it, they'd make more money just staying leased to a carrier, because there is a lot more risk involved. There is a lot more expense having your own authority, and you have to be able to control all those costs to be more profitable than just staying leased to a carrier. So that's where you need to understand if you're ready or not. Can you handle all of that other responsibility?
Right. Well, I don't think that's going to be an issue,
Okay.
So I guess my thing is, let's kind of a couple quick questions here for you. I don't want to hold up all the time for everyone else. Do I need to file the authority for myself, or do you want to use a service like DAT or NASTIC to do that?
I highly recommend you do it by yourself. It's very, very easy. If you go to the
Okay.
Facebook group, Trucking with Authority, in the files section, I have a checklist. And step by step, it even has the link. You open it on your computer in Adobe, it's a hot link. You just click on the link and it'll take you right to the page where you apply. It's $300 to actually get your MC number. It is, the UCR just went back into effect. It was delayed for a few months. It's 60 something now. I don't remember the new rates. So you need those two things. And then depending on what states you run in, New York, Kentucky, New Mexico, and Oregon all require some registration. There's a checklist for that as well. All of that can be done within an hour. I wanted to do this at my event, the drive, in October. I was hoping somebody would show up that wanted to apply for their authority. Unfortunately, there was nobody. I was going to do it on stage to show people how it's done. I wanted to actually somebody come in the room, set them up with their authority. It can be that easy literally, I could have done it on stage for people and shown step by step how to do it. I can go through the whole process in about an hour. Now, the reason that I say to do it yourself is I tried to hire one of those companies years ago when I tried to get my own authority. They actually mailed me, snail mail, they mailed me this booklet. It was like a 3-ring binder folder, and it had all of this different information. It had a list of forms that I had to fill out, because in order for this third-party company to file for you, they have to have all of your information. So they will have either an online form, most everybody's online now, but back then it was paper. So they'll send you all these online forms or whatnot. You have to go through this. It might take you an hour to fill all this stuff out. And what caught me was these forms, I filled them all out, and at the bottom, the return address was the FMCSA. So essentially, this company wanted me to fill out the form, send it back to them, so all they would do is put it in an envelope, lick a stamp, and send it to FMCSA. I did all of the work, and they wanted to charge me, at the time, it was almost $1,000 to do it, plus the filing fees. It was ridiculous. Right. And there are still companies out there. I just talked to somebody last week that did that. They paid $1,300, and they said, well, but I already have my numbers, and they got it for me instantly. Soon as you click the submit button, you get your USDOT number. I think it's as soon as they process the application, they assign you your MC number, and none of these third-party companies can do it any faster. There are other companies. There was a guy recently got his authority, and he fell for the scheme where they said, if you pay us whatever, couple $100, we can fast track your application, and instead of waiting 3 weeks, we can get it done in 10 days. So he sent him a couple $100. His application was still approved on the 20th day. And I told him there's no faster way to do it. It's got to go through the government. There's no third party that does it. Third parties send the information to the government. The government actually is the one that processes everything. Now, the other thing is, if you do it yourself, all the information comes to you, and all the future mailings come to you. Another scam that I've seen these third-party companies do is they file the application, they put all of their return addresses and phone numbers on your application, and then when it's time for renewals or time for updates or any of those types of things, those notices go to them. And even your PIN numbers and things like that go to them, not directly to you. And as a result, they have you over a barrel, because now you have to pay them to either forward those all that mail to you, or you have to pay them to file again for your updates and all those types of things. So I highly recommend you do it yourself. There are way too many scam operations out there, even ones that seem reputable. And that some of the ones that you mentioned, I have had to fix those. There was a driver called me and said he was shut down in Kentucky, and he had one of these third-party companies get his KYU number, or he didn't. I guess they didn't tell him he needed a KYU number, something like that. And he called me and he says, "What do I do? They shut me down, and they said they're going to impound my truck if I don't get these taxes paid and all this type of stuff." And I looked to see, and he says, I hired this company, and they said I was good to go, and I'm not. And I said, well, and they were a reputable company, big name. And sure enough, they forgot to inform him that he needed this one little thing for the state. And again, it's really easy, even if you do hire one of these third-party companies, because I know some people are intimidated filling out these forms. They look like tax return type forms. People get intimidated with that. It has to be done online now. But if you're still intimidated, get my checklist. And even if you hire a third-party company, make sure that they get everything that you need. Check it off the list.
Yeah. Your checklist on the Facebook page?
It's on the Authority? It's on the Facebook page. Trucking with Authority, the group, not the page, in the files section. Okay. And I believe it's Authority checklist. I actually put that in there. Okay. It's probably been almost 2 years ago now, but last I checked, all the links are still relevant. Everything should still work. They've updated the system, and this is why I have not updated that form yet, because FMCSA has continued to update their system. The links all take you to the right places, although it might take you through an old link, an old backdoor, but it'll take you where you need to go. And the new application, back when I did it, like I said, it was like filling out a tax return form on paper. They then put it online, the MCS 150 and the OP1. Now you go through the URS system, the Unified Registration System, not to be confused with what has been the talk of the town lately, which is the UCR, the Uniform Carrier Registration. Those are two separate systems. The URS, Unified Registration System, is the FMCSA's website for a new applicant to get their authority. It's now one application, and it's $300 to apply. You'll get everything you need, and honestly, it's a lot easier. Like I said, it used to be like a tax return form. That's what it looked like. Now, the website it's got little cartoon graphics. It's animated. It's really, do you need to go over the road or are you local? Click here or click here. I mean, very simple yes or no check mark questions.
Okay.
It's easy to navigate and figure out.
Okay, last question. So how much money am I expected to push out for getting, or you talk about the authority, you're going to get your insurance, you're going to get your registration, and all the different stuff in between. How much am I going to spend before I'm actually pulling my first load? In between, 5,600, 6,000, or 10,000, or,
Okay, so
how much do you need to get going here?
it's $300 to get your authority. I say 76. It's
Right.
60 something for UCR now. They just lowered it because of a lawsuit. 60 something dollars for that. That technically is all you need for your authority, depending on what states you run in. Then you need your obviously your apportion tag, depending on what state you're in. Again, it's usually right around $1,650. It could be anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500, but most of the time it's like $1,650. It's a portion, which means every state gets their portion, so it should be pretty equal everywhere you go. Although some states require a bond and different things to get set up originally, and it's with 50 states, it's too much for me to keep track of every single one. Plus all the Canadian provinces.
Right. Well, we're just talking ballpark.
Yep.
We're just talking ballpark, and that $1,500-$1,600 range is about right.
Yep. So I'd say about between 16 and 17 for your first plates. 1650. Okay, so 1650 for your tags. Another just under $400, about $360 some for your MC number, your actual authority through the federal government, and then the UCR Unified Carrier Registration, UCS system. That's the system in Indiana. So $370 some there. That's all you need to apply there. Then you need to set up with, again, if you're going to the state of New York, because of OIDA's lawsuit, I believe it's only $1.50 to buy a sticker there now. You have to register your truck, set up your account, and buy a sticker for the heavy use tax. State of Kentucky, I believe, is about $19 to set up your account there, but that's a one-time fee. It's not an annual renewal or anything like that. One-time fee. You're set there. And then you need to make sure you update that anytime you change your trucks or anything. Make sure the state has that. And then you have to file quarterly with each of those states. New Mexico, if you drive through, you can pull trip permits at the port of entry, but it's only $5 something to actually register your truck there, and then like $1.50 for your credit card fee. So it's about $7 to register in the state of New Mexico. Oregon is difficult. Oregon, they require a bond for your first truck. It's $2,000. If you only go there 5 times or less per year, it is a $9 fee to get the actual temporary permit. You got to call ahead and get it ahead of time. And then 16 cents per mile is what Oregon charges. So if you would give them the route, if you're entering from I-84 going to Portland and back, give them that route, they'll calculate the miles and you pay for that up front. Or you put the $2,000 bond in, and instead of filing quarterly, you have to file every single month for the first year in the state of Oregon. Or if you go over that 5 temporary passes per year, the 6th one, you can still do it, but in addition to those fees, they round up to the next $100. So if your temporary permit is $101, they round it up to $200, and they take that extra and apply it toward your $2,000 bond. If you have more trucks, the second truck is about $500 on top. So each additional truck, it's $460 something, but it's about $500 for each additional. So $2,000 for the first one, $500 for the second, $3,000, $2,500 for the second, $3,000 for 3, and so forth.
All right.
Okay,
I
so
think that pretty much covers it then.
now insurance is the one thing that I left out of that. Insurance is going to be by far your biggest upfront expense. And I cannot tell you what that number will be because I have seen quotes as low as roughly $6,000 for the year, and I have seen quotes of $25,000 for 1 year in the first year of your authority. Now, I know you, and you've got a good motor vehicle record, you've got experience. What state do you live in?
Texas.
You live in Texas. And Texas is, they're kind of in the middle. And again, it can vary just depending on what county you live in or what city you live in. But Texas is relatively average. It's not too high on the scale, and it's definitely not the cheapest either. Out of Texas, if you expect about $10,000 to $12,000 a year, maybe $15,000, and they'll probably want about 30% down. So figure $3,000 to $5,000 down.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
But that could be all over the board. There are some companies that may want all of it down. There are other ways. If you could come up with the cash, it would be a lot less expensive if you don't do any payments. If you can pay it all up front, that type of thing. And different companies offer different payment plans. Some charge over 12 months, some charge 10 months, and then there's 2 months without a payment at all. And that's just going to depend on the company that you go with. But as far as the rates, you'll have to really get your DOT number at least. And the DOT number is free. So go ahead and get your DOT number. And anybody listening, if you have any interest in getting your authority now or in the future, I highly recommend getting your US DOT number. It's absolutely free. And aging that number could help you in the future when you get insurance. Because, Matt, you're starting brand new. And the insurance company is going to look at your DOT number and say you're brand new, you just started today, and they'll charge you a lot more. And I've been saying since 2014, go in and apply, get your DOT number, because I was just working with a local guy here in Florida. He called me and said, hey, I had a DOT number for a couple of years, and they gave me a significant break on my insurance. So that age on that, it can help you.
Okay, good deal, good stuff, man. Well, I don't want to hog all the time up for your other callers, man. So I can always give a shout later on.
Absolutely, and you know where to find me on Facebook, or I think you've got my cell phone number, so you can give us a call anytime if you need anything.
I get in touch with Elizabeth. But hey, I just want to give you a thanks, man, for everything you guys do. I mean, I really appreciate it. I really think if it wasn't for you guys that I wouldn't be in this position where I am right now. So on a positive note here, I've got 2 trucks, so I'm leased to the carrier right now. I can still be driving the one truck around while I'm applying for the authority, getting the registration, the insurance, and everything ready to go on the other truck. So that's a whole separate unit. So I can still be bringing in cash flow while this other process is going on. So
Perfect.
That's a win-win in my favor.
Absolutely, that's perfect. You're in a good situation. And thank you for the thank you for the accolades. I love doing this show. I love helping out, and I love seeing people make that step and become successful. And and thank you very much, Matt, for that. All right, we're gonna jump over to Steve in Alabama. Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ken, thanks for taking my call. Just to let that driver, know ahead of you. I filed my authority myself online. I went on your website and I got the checklist and was able to go through it. And within about 30 or 40 minutes, I had everything filed. And so from that point, everything that I decided to do on my own instead of paying anyone to do this stuff for me. So if it was a problem that come up or something that did come up, I would recognize what's going on instead of having to run back to the same person that I paid to figure this thing out. And so it's fairly easy step once you get rolling and once you get going into it. And I appreciate you for showing us and getting us going, because I filed in August and was up and operating in September. And I'm still operating, and I'm loving it. And just your guidance and the checklist, it really works. It really works. I just want to be a testament to that in the area.
Awesome. And you applied in August. You're up and running just in time to take advantage of I mean, you got to be loving the market right now.
Oh yes, I am loving. I am really loving the market. One of the things that I do, I sat down and I learned how to look at the lanes and then be able to negotiate the ratio between the trucks and the loads in the lane and kind of set my price from that point. In the area that I'm in, and I tell you, I'm loving it. I never, well, I've been driving for 12 years and never really just say seen it like this, at this point. Really, be honest with you.
It's unreal. I mean, for years I've been doing the show, and I keep referencing 2014, and we're blowing it out of the water. I mean, 2014 was a good year. A lot of people got their authority back then because it was such a good year. And right now, I mean, I don't even know what to make of this. This is not following any trends. We are just, it's awesome. It's great to see. I know that it can't last forever. Things will change. Things will plateau.
Right.
The fleets will be buying trucks, adding capacity, and supply and demand will level things out. But while it's good, I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. One of the questions that I have, speaking of the Kentucky and the KYU number, I went in and I registered, with those guys, and I got my KYU number. I filed for my IFTA at the end of the third quarter, for the September that I ran. I filed my IFTA, in which I never did run it through the New York or even run through Kentucky during that time. So I was able to go through. I'm domiciled out of Georgia, and I was able to go through the Georgia portal and file my IFTA on my own.
Right.
Okay. Now for the fourth quarter, now I can do the same thing through the Georgia portal, but this time I ran through Kentucky, in which I know I can I go back through the Kentucky website and be able to file there, up on the, with the weight distance tax,
right,
through Kentucky. So my question to you is that the Georgia portal does not recognize the state of Kentucky. And if I go to Kentucky and file that tax there, the weight distance tax in Kentucky, how would I report that to Georgia if they're saying that I got that paid, or should I even report that to Georgia?
Okay, those are completely separate, and Georgia doesn't need to know anything about it. So a couple things I need to touch on there. First of all, you had your KYU number in the third quarter, right? And but you did not run there.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And I'm assuming you had your heavy
Right.
your HUT heavy use tax stickers, your credentials for New York as well, but you just never ran there.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I do have that.
Okay, but you did run in both of those for fourth quarter. All right. So although you did not run in either of those states in the third quarter, you still have to go and file. Even you'll put 0. And you'll still have to file to say that you never ran any miles there. Otherwise, they will send you a nastygram and say that your credentials are suspended for failure to file. So even if you don't have any miles to report, you still have to go in there and put 0s on the form. There's no penalties. There's nothing. It just put 0s. And if you don't file at all, the state of Kentucky will suspend your KYU license, and they will require a $1,000 bond to reactivate it. If it happens again, it's a $250 fine on top of that, and I think you forfeit your $1,000 bond. So it's basically a deposit. If you continue on for a year, you get your $1,000 back. But go to the KYU. It's all electronic. You can file online. File it online. Report for third quarter that there were 0 miles driven. The penalties are based on what you owe, so it should be 0 interest, 0 penalties, but you still need to file. You may need to contact.
Well, I did file for the third quarter in Kentucky at 0, and New York at 0 also.
Okay, good. All right, I just wanted to make sure, and for anybody listening, to clarify that you do have to file even if you don't drive there. So now, the KYU, the heavy use tax or the weight distance tax in all these states are completely separate from IFTA. So you still have to pay the IFTA tax for those miles through the state of Georgia, where you're domiciled.
Mhm.
Okay, so you'll still have to pay the IFTA tax, and it goes on the line, no different. So you'll put the miles you drove in that state, the gallons you burned, and the tax you owe, and so forth, and it'll come up with the number that you owe just for the IFTA tax. That is separate from what you pay Kentucky. Kentucky charges their mileage-based tax, and it's completely separate. And it's also not to be confused with Kentucky has a surcharge for IFTA as well, also separate. That surcharge is IFTA-based, completely separate.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the problems that I was having in the Georgia portal. It's like whenever I did put it in and I seen where it was a surcharge, it was like it just stopped at that point and wouldn't allow me to put in any more information through the Georgia portal.
Okay.
And that's what was stumping me in the area.
Okay. And I'm not sure why it would have stopped you, but maybe this will help to clarify. So when you buy fuel in Kentucky, now Kentucky and Virginia both have a surcharge. Indiana used to, but Indiana got rid of it. They rolled it in. Now you pay at the pump. But the tax that when you buy fuel is actually lower at the pump than the fuel that you burn in that state. So if you buy all your fuel in that state and you only run in that state, you still owe money at the end of the quarter because the tax you pay at the pump is not enough. You have to pay more.
Right.
Okay, so when you're filling out your tax return, you put in, and it all still distributes the same. So you put in all the fuel you bought and all the miles you ran, and it will say how much fuel you burned in that state based on how your miles per gallon and your miles, and it will tell you based on their tax rate how much you owe or may get a credit back. And then it will say your next line will be the surcharge, which is it 3 cents or 4 cents now? And that will be a separate line on your form. But it'll be the same calculation of how many gallons and miles and so forth that you burned.
Okay, that's where I was getting stumped at. It's the second line on the form. Okay.
Yep, it'll just be the next line, just as if it was another state. At least that's how every state that I've seen it works. It'll just be the next line down. You fill out the same state for the surcharge, and you put the gallons and miles and so forth, and then it'll spit out the number that you owe there.
Okay, I got it now.
All right.
Okay.
So
that was a question, and that cleared it up for me, and I do appreciate it.
Awesome. I am going to do. I have a YouTube video out now that shows how to properly buy fuel and taking your IFTA tax into account. And I mapped out a route. This was a few months ago. This was before Indiana changed their taxes. I tried to avoid using Indiana as an example, but the route passes through it that I used. But it's from St. Louis, Missouri, up to, I think, somewhere like Toledo, Ohio. And I mapped out, and I actually looked up the fuel prices on that route, and I showed what was cheaper and what was more expensive and why, and where you could buy your fuel. And it worked out to where you spend more money at the pump actually saves you money at the end of the quarter. You would actually get a return. And I showed how it could save several $1,000s a year if you did it right. And I'm also going to do another video, and I'm going to show, because people like to see it in different ways. Some people like to hear it. Some people like to visualize it. I'm going to show what that looks like on the actual tax return. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks here, before the end of the month, when the fourth quarter IFTA is due, I'll try to spit that out and show. I actually have a spreadsheet that I have formatted to look exactly like the IFTA tax return, so that I can spit that out and give it to all my drivers so they can see what they individually owe or where they're buying fuel, and it shows that, which helps understand when you see the tax laid out on the lines, on the actual form, it makes sense why you get a refund or why you owe money at the end of the year, and it helps understand how to properly buy fuel. So keep an eye out for that over the next couple of weeks. When I get time, if I ever get time, I am going to try to do a YouTube video to help explain that.
Okay, that sounds good, and I will keep an eye out on that.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the call, Steve. Thank you, and we are getting close to an hour here, but we do have some other calls. Anybody that's on the line, I am definitely going to get to your calls, so hang in there. You have 7 more minutes to get on the line. If you have any questions or comments, anything you'd like to add, call 917-889-9924. Go ahead and call in. If you call in before 8:30 and raise your hand, I will get to the call. After 8:30, the phone lines close. If you're on the line, you can stay on the line. I will get to your questions. But after 8:30, the phone lines close for new callers. So you have 6 minutes to get your calls and get your questions in. We're going to go to, if it'll click here, we're going to go to the Highwayman in Arkansas. Welcome to the show.
What's happening?
How you doing?
How's it going?
How can we help
out
you?
there? Okay, my question is this. I've been out here since 1986. I'm an old man.
Okay.
But I've just learned these ULD logs. And my question is, do you think they're going to extend that 14-hour rule to 16 or do away with it and the 10-hour sleep rule? I can't stand that damn thing. I don't sleep for 5 hours anyway. What do you think they're going to do about that? And do you think that after 2 hours of sitting, you should start your detention pay? And how much do you think it should be? I know what I charge, but I'm just trying to get an estimate of what you think it should be.
Okay. Well, anything I say about the rules and things are just going to be an opinion. I don't have anything to back this up.
I understand.
As far as the 14-hour rule, I think they are doing a study on it. They are studying and trying to see if the 10-hour rule and the 14-hour rule, they're studying the hours of service. Finally, they should have did an hours of service study before they implemented the ELDs, but I think the pressure from the ELDs, they are finally looking at that. I think with the extremely high rates that we're seeing right now, I think a lot of that is attributed to the ELDs and the change in the market and the capacity. I think that's going to make a lot of people open their eyes to what the real problem is, because ELDs aren't really the problem. The hours of service is really the problem. And I think once people start to feel a little pain, other than just truck drivers, once the shippers and receivers and the final end consumer starts to feel a little pain from this, they're going to demand that something happens. And, I've been saying it since the beginning. If you want this rule changed, we all should have just followed it, to the T exactly, while we still had the flexibility of paper logs. But now that we're on ELDs, it's kind of like they're forcing us to do it anyway. I think they're very flawed. I think we could definitely do better. And now I think there's a spotlight on that, which, as far as ELDs go, I'm not a fan of anything mandated on us, but it does put a spotlight on the real problem, which is the hours of service. I mean, we shouldn't have to, even if we're on paper logs, we shouldn't have to falsify our logs to run and make money and run the business. But
I got you there.
Right. But
I like the ELD. I like the ELD part as far as it keeping up with where I've been and where I'm going, so I don't got to pull my license out and do it anymore.
Right.
Mark a straight line. I love that part.
Right.
But the 14-hour rule, the 10-hour rule is something I can't get used to.
But here's the other side of that, though. So you don't like the 14-hour rule. What if we made it a 16-hour rule or an 18-hour rule or a 20-hour rule, or we did away with it altogether? There's always going to be somebody that's right up against the clock that's not going to be happy with it. Same with the 10-hour rule. Let's, if we allowed it to where we could do a split sleeper again, like the 5 and 5 or something like that. If we could split that 10 up or make it 8 or whatever it is, there's always going to be somebody that's not happy with it, because no matter how we change these rules, this industry is not a cookie cutter industry. There is no way we can change the rules that it'll work for everyone. So what is the solution? Can we just throw them away altogether? I mean, I know a lot of people would like to do that, but the government's not going to just throw away the rules completely and let everybody just run wild. So, that's kind of the hard part. If you think about it from, the legislators' side, what would they change the rule to that would make everybody happy? There's always going to be somebody not happy. I don't know, honestly, what the answer would be. I don't necessarily like the 14-hour rule or the 10-hour rule, but if you work it, and if you look at the rates right now, I think it's working for us. And originally hours
I
of
did
service.
too.
90 seconds.
And originally, hours of service were put in place to protect drivers, and now we're fighting it because we think that following the rules is going to hurt us. So there's got to be a happy medium somewhere, and I'm just not really sure where that is. One thing I will say, though.
Well, what do you think about the detention rates?
Well, one other thing on the hours of service. One thing I will say is, I think I've noticed that a lot of people are complaining about
60 seconds.
And anybody that's listening that hears the countdown here, the phone lines are about to close. But if you can get on the line in 60 seconds, I will still take your calls. After 60 seconds, phone lines close for the night. But so I think the hours of service problem, part of the problem with the ELDs is a lot of people don't even understand hours of service very well. I've spent a lot of time over the past few weeks just explaining how hours of service works to people. So on paper, they were making it work because they know, that there's a 10-hour break and the 14-hour rule and the 11-hour rule. But we have the 8 and 2 split, which if you use the 8 and 2 split, if you take a 2-hour break in the middle of your day instead of taking a 30-minute break,
10 seconds,
and then take an 8-hour break to follow that up, you could continually do an 8 and 2 split nonstop and never have to do a 10-hour break, and which kind of extends your 14-hour rule. That's one extension on that. I know it's not an ideal solution, but a lot of people don't understand that part of the rule either. And now they are absolutely looking to enforce or change or give guidance on the personal conveyance rules. I think that's really going to make things difficult. It makes it hard to run. I just had one of my trucks worked on today, and I was talking to one of the mechanics. They run 10 trucks of their own, and they're trying to keep their guys, at least their local guys, on paper logs as long as possible because they do multiple pickups and deliveries, and they need the flexibility of paper. And the problem that they're seeing is they can put their drivers on an hourly program. The drivers don't lose any money, and what they can do is just offset that by raising their rates, which they've figured out a way to do. So my question is, why didn't they raise their rates to the appropriate level and make it so that they could run legal before? So it's kind of a catch-22. There's no good way around any of this. So now that kind of goes into what you're saying about detention, though. What should we charge for detention? What we get paid to haul freight from point A to point B. We can't just drive around with empty trailers, so it needs to be assumed that we need to include, and keyword include. We don't give away our time. I've even heard attorneys say, the first 2 hours is free time, and it's absolutely not free. We include loading and unloading time, and it needs to be reasonable. That's included. And when I talk to a broker or a customer, shipper, receiver, when I talk to them, I say that. I say the first 2 hours is included. Beyond 2 hours, and I like to shoot high. I like to say $100 an hour, but they always flinch at that. And a lot of times they come back and say, oh, it's 25 an hour and some, whatever. Typically we end up settling at 50. I can live with 50, although I think that needs to be the bottom number. Certainly I've got some owner operators, at least to me, that have taken less, but I really think $50 an hour should be the absolute minimum. I like the formula of, 60 miles an hour times your average rate per mile. So if you're getting $2 a mile, it should be $120 an hour. I think that would actually be a justifiable rate. I don't think the customers will see it that way. But the way I see detention is this. I don't want detention ever. I don't ever want my truck held up. I just want to get in, get out. Okay, that's what I agreed to do. Load the product, unload the product, let me go. Okay, I want the truck back. I don't get paid to sit there. So the shippers and receivers, it should be a rate that is shockingly high, because I don't want the shippers and receivers taking advantage of the truck. They have an option. They can either pay another employee or buy another forklift or whatever it takes to get this trucks in and out quickly, or they can pay the truck. And what they typically do is they say they're not going to pay the truck for sitting or detention, or they're not going to pay for 4 hours or 6 hours or whatever their terms are, or it's $25 an hour, which is ridiculous. At $25 an hour, if you think about it, let's say you have a forklift operator, And a forklift operator, even in a lower cost of living state like Florida here, you might be paying a forklift operator $15 an hour. Then you've got the cost of the operation of the forklift. Then you've got, workman's comp and taxes and everything else. I promise you it's costing the company more than $25 an hour to keep an employee on a forklift. Okay? It's cheaper to pay a truck $25 an hour than it is to buy another forklift or hire another employee to load that truck. I don't think that's the way it should be. It needs to be as much or more. It needs to pay the truck with the value, what the truck's time is worth. Now, going back to ELDs, I think the value of time is finally going to take precedence over a rate per mile, which I think is a long time coming. One thing that we have to do now is we have to put that dollar sign next to our watch. We have to understand what it's costing us to sit there. If our 14-hour clock is ticking, our drive time is ticking, our on-duty time is ticking, and what have you, that clock is moving, and the ELDs hold us accountable. So we have to hold accountable the shippers and receivers that are holding us up. And again, I can't put a number on it. Every business needs to run differently. Everybody's costs are different. Everybody runs, different. I think $50 an hour is reasonable and probably on the low side. I think, Go ahead.
Too cheap. I charge $100, just like you said. That's what I get after 2 hours. I've been out here since '86. I get $100 after 2 hours because I could have been making more than that when my truck was moving.
Absolutely. Now, here, let me ask you this.
When I was telling you this, though, about the 14-hour rule, I do like it, but I think it still needs to be 16. It's not that I dislike it. I do like it, but I still think it needs to be about 16, and that the 10-hour rule needs to be moved to 8. They do that, I think things are going to change a little bit better.
Well, again, I think it might be helpful if start taking advantage of the 8 and 2 split sleeper rule. That might help you a little bit.
I do that. I do the 8-2 split.
Okay.
I do the 8-2 split all the time. That's what I do.
Okay. And then again, I don't disagree with you. I think the way this industry works, 16 hours is reasonable. But again, if we move it to 16, there's going to be somebody up there that's always bumping that 16-hour clock and not happy with that either. So how do we make everybody happy? And go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that I'm glad to see the rates changing. Back in '86, '88, and fuel was down, I was making this kind of money. Now I'm back to it again. It makes it more like it should be. So I'm all for that. And I appreciate your service. I was in the military too. I wanted to tell you that on there. I appreciate your service.
I appreciate yours. Thank you. And, one question I have for you. So you charge $100 an hour. What do you do when the broker or whoever you're dealing with says, we can't pay that, we're only going to pay you $40 an hour or $25 an hour? What do you do?
It's what I tell him. I tell him he can't afford me because I've been out here long enough to say those things.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is it's got to be on the rate con. When he comes back and tells me he can't pay $100, then I turn around and I up my pay. Say it's $3,000 plus $100 there to her. He tells me he can't pay the $100 an hour. I tell him, well, you're going to have to pay me $3,200 for the freight.
There you go.
Because I'm going to assume be there another 4 hours.
That okay, and that I like that you said that, and I've mentioned this before. I like to use this as a negotiation tool. Like I said, I don't want detention. I don't want to be sitting at a dock. I don't want my truck sitting at a dock. I want to move in. And so I like to use this as a negotiation tool. And so what I'll say is, I need $100 an hour. And if they say I can't put that on the rate confirmation, I got to ask them why. I mean, if it's going to be more than 2 hours, why are you holding us more than 2 hours? If you can't put it on the rate confirmation, you must be pretty confident that it will go into a detention rate. So what's the deal? Why are we holding it that long? So that gives you some leverage with knowing what's going on. The other thing that I think should start happening, and I talk a lot about contracts with these brokers and things, drivers and carriers, we have some rights and opportunities that most brokers want us to waive. And I think we need to start paying a little more attention to this. If a shipper or receiver, even if you're loaded, if you pull in there and they hold you longer than your included time, mind you, they're paying you to sit there for 2 hours. You've included that. And maybe, like you said, if they don't want to pay you the detention, maybe you include, 2 more hours. So you throw $200 more on the line haul. They're included, but they're not free. If they don't get you in and out within a reasonable amount of time, I honestly think we need to just start leaving and finding something else or warehousing their freight, refuse delivery. I will tell you this. As a broker, I deal with LTL carriers quite a bit. LTL carriers don't even ask for detention. They just leave. They call you the next day and say, hey, we left because nobody was there to receive this, or it was taking too long. We had other things to do. We left. Now it's going to cost you $250 for us to bring it back, or whatever their fee is. It's going to cost you to bring that freight back. I mean, they don't even tell you till the next day. You don't even have an idea that it didn't happen. And I think truckload carriers have the same opportunities. We have the same legal protections, and we need to start making that happen. If they don't unload us, find a warehouse that can, and they can pay us to bring it back. We've got other things to do. We held up our end of the deal. We showed up on time. We sat there. They paid us for 2 hours to sit there. We sat there for 2 hours or 4 hours, whatever they pay us for. Beyond that, we don't have any obligation to sit there and wait for them. And I think once carriers start to put that kind of pressure on the shippers and receivers, then we'll start seeing some differences in this industry. Not just in rates, but a little more urgency when we show up at these places.
You're exactly right. I think that's the way it needs to be. I think other independent operators need to stick to their guns. Don't do like they did back in the 90s and start squeeching out on us. Stick together.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it doesn't even necessarily have to be stick together, because we don't need cooperation on this. We just need to do what's best for our own businesses individually. We just we all need to do what's best for us. And if they're not paying us to sit there, we got to stop giving away our time. If you look at other industries, that's how it works. The trucking industry is one of a kind with that, because honestly, carriers and uninformed small business owners, owner-operators, there are more independent contractors in the trucking industry than any other industry, and most of them are very uninformed on what they can and can't do, which is why we've gotten to this place. And that's why I do this show. I try to help people understand what they can and can't do and how to get there and what to do to make it better. And, once we start to understand that, and now with ELDs, this is the one thing I like about it. With ELDs, we have to start putting a value on our time. And I think people will start to realize the value of the time is more important than, giving away the free time or sitting there all day or what have you. And once you have that dollar sign next to your watch, you'll start making decisions a little differently. And it's starting to happen. We're starting to see it.
Yeah. Well, you keep it up and you keep the show going. I appreciate you. And keep on trucking.
Well, I appreciate Highwayman. Thank you for the call. And, I get a lot of new callers, people new to the industry, and I like it when I get, some more experience to back up some of the things that I don't always go with the flow. I know my opinion does not line up with a lot of people, and I like to get some people that have been in the industry a while that understand where I'm coming from on some of this. So I appreciate that. We've got 2 more callers. Looks like we may have, 2 more callers here. We'll go to Stuart in Florida. Welcome to the show. How can we help you? Yeah, here we go.
How you doing, Kenny? So here's what I've got going on here. I'm looking to grow this year, and I brought a family member on to run teams with me.
Okay.
I figured with the ELDs and stuff like that, I figured running as a team would make us a bit more valuable. It was just a prediction that I had. Obviously being against the clock a lot more. And then obviously the plan is to grow, buy more trucks, etc. But we wanted to do the team route first. One of the issues I'm running into here is now trying to book loads. I'm finding there's not that much team free, and I'm finding it hard. I'm having to get brokers to move appointment times, and then they're turning it around on me, and they're trying to lower the rate because I'm asking them to move an appointment, so we can run constantly. I don't want to bring someone on the truck and run like it's a solo driver,
Right.
So do you have any tips, advice, or any suggestions to try and, just build that value, and where can we find better team freight? I'm running under my own authority. So I really don't want to go and sign on with a carrier or anything like that. It feels like it's a bit of a step backwards. Any advice, tips you have that could help?
Okay. Well, you are right. There is not a lot of team freight on load boards, and I will say that a lot of the shippers and receivers have kind of planned for some of this, and they're planning their time out. Now, contrary to popular belief, most freight out there right now can be run legally. There's very little of it that can't be done legally as a solo, unless you've burned up most of your day with a different load before you pick up the first load. So most of the stuff is timed to where there is enough time for a solo to do it. Now, I do think that you're right, though. A team will have more value. I think the industry is adjusting right now. One of the reasons that the rates are the way they are is because there's a little bit of shock and awe going on. There's going to be an adjustment period. One of the things that I think is going to happen is teams will become a more valuable commodity. So being a team truck right now, you might not see it. I'm sure there's got to be a lot more team freight out there now than there was 2 years ago. But I do think that shippers and receivers have tried to schedule their shipments in such a way that they can be done legally with a solo. But there are still a lot of shipments out there that are at that, I call it super solo rate, which is something that you might look at checking out. So it's at 7 to 1,000 mile runs that a solo cannot do next day, or if they might be planned for next day. So if you pick up in the morning and you could run 500 miles today, run another 500 miles tomorrow and deliver tomorrow afternoon, it might be planned for a solo delivered next day. You might be able to convince them to bump it to where it's an early morning delivery. And oftentimes when it's a same day delivery, in other words, you're not changing the days of the appointment. You're just changing, maybe try to get an earlier appointment. Sometimes that can be a little easier. Not always, but sometimes. Focusing on that super solo type freight, which used to be the brokers would say, I need a strong solo for this. They didn't need a team. They need a strong solo on paper. I think if you can run that legally with a team, that might be where the bread and butter is. In the meantime, until more freight kids out here that they understand the need for a team. Now, I can also say that finding your geographic niche is probably important. A lot of automotive freight, just-in-time freight, comes in from the Mexico border. So start looking for brokers that work that region and maybe work that lane. DAT has a tool called Lane Makers. If you click on Lane Makers, go again, find some of the lanes that are known for using a lot of teams. Like I said, in Mexico, anywhere, El Paso, McAllen, Laredo, anywhere down there to Detroit, Toledo, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, even Chicago, Indiana, Indianapolis. A lot of automotive freight moves on that lane. A lot of it is just-in-time freight, and they want teams on it. If you can get set up with some brokers that run that lane, use the Lane Maker tool on the load boards to see what brokers have the most on that lane. Contact them and tell them you are a team and start building relationships with those brokers. That could be one way to start adding value and let people know you are a team. Again, right now, I think people got caught with their pants down. A lot of people didn't realize this was happening the way it is. I've still talked to brokers that think that, it got pushed back until April. And there are still carriers out there that think that it got pushed back until April because they're not doing hard enforcement until April. I think that it's going to take, because of this delayed enforcement period, it's actually going to hurt us more than anything because it's delaying the inevitable of people not getting on the ball and figuring out how to make this work. So the next few months are going to be unpredictable and crazy with that type of freight. Will we have team freight? Will we have, do we still want strong solos? But I think developing the lanes with the brokers that specialize in team freight is where it's at. I have found that a lot of the bigger brokerages have agents that specialize in that. So I know Landstar has a few agents that really specialize mainly in team freight. Again, anything that's coming in from the ports, I would look at brokers around there that have a lot of coast to coast freight. So maybe you type in, and I don't know if you run California or not, but maybe you type in, uh, excuse me, like Los Angeles to Jacksonville. It might be a port to port type shipment, or Los Angeles to South Carolina, or something that's coast to coast, that's probably moving from one port to another. Find what brokers have the most freight. Chances are they will have a lot more team freight. And call some of the major brokerages, introduce yourself and tell them you have a team, not even looking for a load. Just call the different agents and different offices around, or even the corporate offices, and say, hey, I'm Stuart, and I have a trucking company, and here's my information, and we run a team truck, and we want to be there. And basically, you're making a sales call, and we want to be there for you when you need us to make sure that your freight gets delivered on time.
Definitely look into that. That makes sense. I'm sort of on the second move to this. Knowing this sort of a little different. The other thing, obviously, like tactics to buy a truck, and I would like to maybe just split off and run 2 solos, maybe. Is that from what you just said there? It almost sounds like it's a hold off and just what the market does at this point, and you get more of a feel of what happens in April when it's into effect, and they start, doing these delays, whatever you want to put in there, or.
You're breaking up really bad, so I'm going to go ahead and put you on hold. I caught a few words here and there, so let me see if I can kind of piece together some of what you were saying and see if I can answer your question. But I couldn't really make sense of all of that. Sounded like you've got a teammate. You said you brought in a family member, and you're thinking maybe you branch off, you get another truck, and you run 2 solo trucks versus run a team, or should you wait and try to see what happens and run a team? I think there is a lot of opportunity for 2 solo trucks. I really do. Having run teams in the past, unless it's like a husband and wife that really, they want to be in the truck together. That's their business together. They're partners in that. I do think that there is possibly more value in having 2 solo trucks right now. Now, in the next 6 months to a year, I think the industry will start making that shift, and you will start seeing more freight that is requiring teams, especially like I was saying, port to port, or from the border, just-in-time freight, and can't be done anymore. It just has weird scheduling of some sort, and it might take you a while to find that niche. When that time comes, you said you wanted to grow a fleet. I would say that buying a second truck, running 2 solos, staying focused in the regions that you like best might be a good way to work that out. Once you start to develop and establish yourself with some of the brokers that you think have good team freight, maybe you hire an employee to put in that truck and bring your teammate back on and run as a team again. And I'm not sure where you were going with that final question there because you were breaking up, but hopefully that answers what you were saying there. All right, we are going to talk to Saeed in Illinois. Saeed, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kenny, how's it going?
Good. How are you? How can we help you?
Good. Okay, so I'm thinking about getting my new authority, right?
Okay.
And earlier in this podcast, you had mentioned it's a good idea to let your authority age.
Yes.
Right? Before you do anything else for benefits of insurance, and the list goes on. So I was wondering if you can give me pros and cons of the authority process that is best suited to accomplish that task only. So what I'm asking is, if I apply for it and spend $300 and let it age for 6 months, at the end of the 6 months, I'm going to get a better insurance rate, of course. But will I have to pay another $300 to reactivate it, or because it never went active because I don't have insurance on it? So basically, what I'm asking you is, what's the best way to let your authority age?
Okay. All right. Let me expand on this a little bit. So you have two things that you get right now. You get your US DOT number and you'll get an MC number. Eventually, I think sometime in 2018, FMCSA is going to phase out the MC number. It'll just be a DOT number, but you will have authority, that's tied to, your US DOT number. Now, it's two separate things, though. So you're going to have a DOT number, which basically gives you a presence within FMCSA. You could operate intra-state without crossing state lines. Most states require a US DOT number. So because of that, if you're leased to a carrier, if you get a US DOT number and you're leased to a carrier, some, not all, some insurance companies may give you a break just because you had a DOT number. Now, that's free. It does not cost you anything currently until FMCSA changes the rules again. It currently does not cost anything to get a US DOT number, and it could help you to have that aged. No guarantees, because insurance companies, they understand you're still a new entrant. They understand that it'll still be a new authority and all that. Brokers, same thing. Brokers are still going to recognize you from the date your authority went active. So when you first apply, I would say that everybody listening, if you're on the fence about this, or if you're in the industry at all, especially if you own a truck, go out and get your DOT number. Get registered and get your information in with FMCSA. That DOT number will be yours forever. It never goes away. It doesn't cost anything to get the US DOT number at all. Get the number, stays with you forever. If you decide to get your authority in 5 years or 10 years, it'll be the same DOT number. Now, sequential numbers don't matter. Doesn't matter that you only have 3 digits or 10 digits or whatever. Or mine starts with a 9, yours starts with an 8, so mine's older or whatever. That doesn't matter. DOT numbers don't work that way. So once you get your DOT number, just let it age. You don't have to put insurance on it. You don't have to activate it. Now, the $300 part is getting your authority, and that's currently getting your MC number. If you get your MC number, it won't do anything until you activate it. In order to activate it, you have to get insurance on it. So that first 6 months you were talking about, you're going to have to put insurance on it to activate it, which it defeats the purpose of what you're trying to do. So no sense in even getting the MC number right now. Now, you also said 6 months. 6 months is not going to change anything for you. Typically, insurance companies aren't going to give you any kind of a break until after a minimum of 1 year, but typically 2 years is where you'll see a price break. Once you've had your authority for about 2 years, that's typically when the insurance companies will look at this and say, look, you're running the business successfully. We can, and no accidents, no claims, we can give you a break. You seem to know what you're doing. That's typically where that happens. The more strict are 3 years, the more lenient, usually around 1 year. And, the insurance market varies, across the board, state to state, county to county. Rates are all over the place. So there's no way for me to tell you what the rates will be. No, and I can't promise you that getting a DOT number will help you one way or the other. I'm telling you that it could, it might. I have seen it happen, but it doesn't happen to everybody. So I highly recommend that everybody gets it because it doesn't cost you anything right now. Eventually it will. So get your DOT number. It's assigned to you permanently. DOT numbers cannot be transferred. The authority can. So if you have a US DOT number, it is assigned to the entity that originally applied for it. So if you apply for it personally or your LLC or incorporated, that entity that owns it forever. Now, if you own the corporation or if you want to upgrade yourself to a corporation, that can be done because it's not a change in management. But that DOT number is permanent.
Okay. So it's free, and the $300 is for the MC.
Correct. The $300 is to actually get your authority. Now, the other part of your question was, do you have to pay again? If you apply to get your authority, to actually get your MC number, the whole thing, you pay $300. You have 90 days from the date of application to get the insurance, get your BOC3 form filed, which is your process agents, get all of that done within 90 days and activate your authority. After 90 days, FMCSA puts your application on hold. Okay, so your application is on hold, and it will stay on hold for a total of 1 year. So 12 more months. So you've got 3 months, it's active. then it's inactive for 12 months. That's 15 months total. If you go within that 15 months, after 90 days, they deactivate it. You can write a letter, and you literally handwrite a letter or type something up, fax it to FMCSA. They will reactivate your authority within that 1 year inactive period. For 1 year, they'll reactivate it at no cost. After that 1 year period, or 15 months total, they suspend your application, and you have to reapply, but it's not $300 anymore because the DOT number is yours, and the MC number that you originally applied for is still assigned to you. It's still your number. It's just never been activated, so they charge a fee to reactivate it. Currently, I believe it's $87 or $84. So they charge a fee to reactivate your application to reactivate. You have 15 months before they do that. And then, but again, that number is always yours.
Okay. So, tell me if my example is correct. So I apply for the DOT and MC, and I put insurance on it, right?
Right.
I'm sorry. Let's say I don't put insurance on it, and I've just filled out the form, right?
Okay.
Okay. So, 12 months, you said, or 15 months go by?
90 days.
And nothing happens?
Right. Well, it's 90 days. They put your application on hold. Okay. After 90 days, you have to write. You have to send them a written letter to reactivate it. It has to be in writing. You send them a written letter, and then you have 12 months to do that.
Okay. So if I apply it and don't put insurance on it, I have 90 days to put insurance on it.
Right.
And then after that 90 days, I have 12 months to do what?
To put a written request in to reactivate your application. Your application basically gets put on the back of the desk for 12 months, and you can write them a letter, and they'll pull your application back up.
And that's $87.
No, for that 12-month period, that's at no cost. Currently. Now, all this could change. Tomorrow, they could come out with a new pricing structure. But currently, you have 12 months at no cost. You send them a written letter, and they will bring your authority back out of, off the bottom of the pile and bring it back up, and you're good to go for that 12 months. So you have 90 days active. From that 90-day period, you have 12 months inactive. So that's 15 months total. After that is over, then they suspend it completely. They take it off their desk, and they put it in another file. And to get it out of there, you have to pay them the $87. And that's what it would be today. It's $87 to basically bring, to resubmit a new application.
Oh, okay. So if I apply for $300, the first 3 months, it'll be active, you're
correct. Well, your authority won't, but your application is ready. Your application is ready and pending.
Yeah, that's
right.
Right. Okay, that makes sense because I try to ask this question to a lot of people and they don't know the answer.
Right, I get that a lot.
So I appreciate your answer to that question, and I love your show.
Well, thank you very much for calling, and I hope that again, now is the time. And if you're on the fence about it, I do think that it's time to take the plunge, take the step, make it happen. Get your numbers out there, start doing the research and getting ready to make some things happen. If you're on the fence or this is something that you're doing in the near future, now is the time. So looks like we have a couple other callers here with their hand raised, but Elizabeth hasn't screened them. I don't know what that means here. So if you've pressed 1, Elizabeth will get to you in just a second. We have gone well into overtime, so let me take a look real quick at the... let's read some comments. It's 9 o'clock, hour and a half in. Let's read some comments. The most important thing is to become as knowledgeable as you can regarding the regulations. They become very important at this point. And I agree. Understanding the regulations, understanding the hours of service is extremely important. And I find that most of the time when people don't understand the regulations, that's when they complain the most because they don't even know what they're talking about. And understanding what they're talking about, understanding the regulations, understanding what you can and cannot do is a key to being successful versus just being another complainer. I need a way to stay busier living on the load board doing hotshot. Hotshot is a hard market. I don't know that I wouldn't get into the hotshot market, especially right now. There are some hotshot load boards out there, but I am not real familiar with those. DAT and Truck Stop do have hotshot freight, and if you can look for the LTL or the partial loads for the for flatbed and so forth, that is a good way to find that on the DAT and Truck Stop load boards. If anybody has information on which load boards they use for hot shotting, go ahead and leave it in the comments or throw it in the Facebook feed here. I don't do hot shot, and for me, I think hot shot, especially if you're running like a 1-ton pickup or F550, something like that, the cost of the truck and the cost of the maintenance and the longevity of the vehicle is the return on investment is not there versus buying a Class 8 truck. You could buy a used Class 8 truck with 500,000 miles on it for about the same price, and a couple years, only a few years old, for about the same price as you can buy a new pickup truck. You could run a Class 8 truck for well over 1 million miles, and in that other 500,000 miles after you bought it used, you might only put, especially running super lightweight hotshot freight, you might only put 2 sets of tires on it. Versus a pickup truck, 1-ton pickup truck, 250,000 miles, and they're pretty much worn out. Every 50,000, 80,000 miles, you're putting a set of tires on them. Oil changes are more frequent, although they're not as expensive per oil change. They become more frequent. Maintenance, parts get worn out faster. They're not a whole lot cheaper to work on. I don't personally see the benefit of using a lightweight truck. For me, you could still haul the same type of freight with a Class 8 truck and a step deck or something like that, and it opens up the opportunity to haul the heavier freight as well. So, and for that reason, I've never done a lot of research in the hotshot market. So, for those of you that know that market, go ahead to the Facebook feed, and Michael had a question about that. Go ahead and any tips you might have. I'm not going to name independent or any individual insurance companies or anything, but this particular insurance company, if you have an insurance claim, say you have a steer tire blowout and destroyed your fender and you use insurance to get it repaired, then it's going to be a major process to get things done. Certainly, the insurance companies vary greatly, and you get what you pay for. Some insurance companies are a lot less expensive than others, and the service that you get in return justifies that. Most brokers require usually B+ or better or A- or better insurance. I have Century Insurance, Sentry, Century Insurance. It's an A+ rated insurance company. They're also one of the most expensive insurance companies out there. But when things go wrong, they handle it. No questions asked. They pay claims. They get things done. Some of these bottom of the barrel type unrated insurance companies, I don't recommend going to them just to save a few bucks on your policy. You get what you pay for. The brokers appreciate seeing the better ratings. You will appreciate seeing better ratings if you ever have a claim. And if you have a claim, something that's in this example, say you have a steer tire blowout and destroys your fender, having an insurance company that will help you get things done quickly, the few $100s a month that you might save, or a couple $1,000s a year even, one potential claim not handled correctly could quickly offset that. So be very, very careful with the insurance companies you choose. Certainly, especially in the beginning, having a good rate is important, but having quality coverage is equally as important, and don't overlook what you're paying for. Make sure you find an agent that you can talk to. I can tell you this from experience. In the beginning, we had an agent that we absolutely hated and put us with some insurance companies that we did not like. Fortunately, we didn't. Well, come to think of it, we may have had one claim back then. And I think we had some fraudulent activities as a result of that. Now that I think about it, that was several years ago now, but there were some fraudulent things happened. There was a claim filed. Some people got involved that shouldn't have. The agents were sending money when they shouldn't have been. You file a claim, you find out that your premiums weren't paid because the somebody dropped the ball somewhere on the line. It's just not worth it. It's really just not worth it. Find reputable companies to work with. You know, the AM Best ratings do matter. Find good agents that you can work with, that listen, and that you can reach out to at any time. I appreciate this channel a lot. Very crucial info and great helpful on folks on here. And I thank you for that. And Michael says, only if it's a company that is going to mentor you into getting your own authority. I imagine that was referring to, should you go to a third-party company to help you get your authority? And I said no. And I agree. If you can find a company that can help you. Now, one of the things I do with my carrier, Patriot Star, when I lease people on, I tell them, look, I want to take care of you, and I hope that you never leave. I hope that we can keep you happy here, you make the money that you want here, and that you never want to go get your own authority because we make sure that you're happy. But I tell everybody, I'm going to give you all the tools you need, that if you want to have your own authority, then absolutely. And, you know, I host this show, but I try to treat the drivers that work, you know, or leased on me, my owner-operators, I give them more attention than I try to give this show. At least I try to. And if they have questions, I try to be here to answer them. And they probably see sides of me that you don't see on the show either. I mean, I'm not perfect either. But I try to help them to, if they want to. I tell every one of them, when the time comes that you want to move on, I don't mind that you want to move on as long as you're not moving backwards. I want you to move ahead. So if that means getting your own authority, I will help them fill out the paperwork. So absolutely, I think it's worth it. If it's somebody that can really teach you something, not just fill out some forms for you and charge you a bunch of money. Those types of companies are scams. Is it worth it going with a company first as an owner-operator? Yes and no. One thing I caution people about is leasing onto a company that teaches them some bad habits. There are definitely, I have had some owner-operators come from other companies leased to me, and I had to break them of some very, very bad business practices that they had. Buying fuel improperly, it would be one. Trying to schedule their loads based on when their paychecks would be. So I even had one owner-operator once tell me that, you know, a load could pay $5,000 and deliver on Friday, which means he would get paid for it right away. But if it paid $10,000 going to the exact same place delivering on Saturday, he'd rather take the cheaper load because he gets, you know, the cash flow. And to me, that's a bad business decision. And, you know, there are definitely times that I've had to coach some people because a lot of the big fleets, especially the mega fleets, they really preach how to cash flow your paychecks, and that's not necessarily the best way to run a business. So going with a company first as an owner-operator, if you could sign on with somebody like myself with Patriot Star, where we can teach you how to run your business and help us, we become partners. We call our owner-operators pros, partnered resource operators. They're all pros. And if we can help and build a business together, I think that's better than just signing on with a company that just recognizes you as another number. Somebody that can teach you. Just like Michael said about hiring a third-party company that can to mentor you into getting your own authority. Same with signing on to a carrier. Somebody that can help you with that. And I think I'm reading these comments backwards, so we're going back. Somebody said, is the DOT number tied to a truck? Absolutely not. The DOT number is tied to the person or company that applied for it. It is not tied to the truck. So the truck could go to any DOT number. The truck could go to another carrier and so forth. The DOT number is applied to the carrier, which means the person or entity, the company, corporation, LLC, what have you, that actually the business is based of. Gary says he only gets a break on rates after 2 years, and a lot of insurance companies, that tends to be the price break point for insurance companies is 2 years. Michael said he just got his insurance 3 months ago, and he's only paying $6,600 a year, which is on the low side. I've seen everything from $6,600, depending on what state you're in. The high risk states, I've seen for first year owner operators. We were just reviewing some numbers today that are, $22,000 to $25,000 per year, and it's per truck. And if a new driver, brand new, I've had drivers come to me that don't even have a CDL, and they buy a truck to take their CDL test in and get their own authority. Never leased to a carrier, have never seen a truck before. And I know a lot of people would poo-poo on that idea, but I'll tell you what, some of them, because of what I just said a minute ago, they don't have any of the bad habits that the truck driver schools and the mega fleets teach them. So a lot of times they come out ahead even though they don't have any experience whatsoever, because they don't have any of the bad experiences to hold them back either. Someone said, don't let it age, your authority. Don't let your authority age. Start running it. And I agree with that. If you're going to get your authority, get your insurance and make it happen, especially right now. That was really the point of the show. The time is now. Make it happen. If you're going to do it, come out of the gate strong. I think now is the time. Make it happen. Regarding the team trucks, more profitable with two solo teams. I'm assuming they mean two solos rather than teams. You can be, but you also have double expenses. I think a team, I have some friends that run two trucks, and I think they would actually be better off parking one of the trucks, unless they could hire a driver for the second truck, but parking one truck and running as a team because of the way they like to run and the areas they like to run. It really depends on the business. If you can find the right freight, I think a team truck can be more profitable for a single truck. Two solos could be more profitable overall, but you do have twice the expenses and a lot more risk. Twice as many opportunities for cargo damage. Twice as many opportunities for two trucks out on the road at the same time means twice as many opportunities for a truck to be in an accident. So you expose yourself a lot more. He's using T-Mobile. I mean, referring to the call that dropped off. I would say I would agree with that. I have a lot of comments here. Let's see. Let me see if I can go to the YouTube side and see what we've got. Now I have a question here. What's the 10-hour sleep? Is it off duty with combo sleeper berth? The split sleeper berth, it's too complicated for me to explain on the air, but I'll give it a quick summary, and maybe the rest of you can go read the regulations and try to figure it out a little better yourself. If you take a 2-hour break off duty, then you take 8 hours in the sleeper berth. Has to be in the sleeper. When you come out of the sleeper berth after your 8 hours, the time between your 8-hour break and your 2-hour break counts against your 14-hour clock, but the time previous to your 2-hour break does not. So the time going back to your previous break is included in your day. So let's say you work 8 hours, you take a 2-hour break, then you work 3 more hours. Now you're due for a 10-hour break. Essentially, your 11 hours is done. You could take 8 hours in the sleeper, but in conjunction with that 2-hour break that you've already had, after 8 hours you come out, you've already got 3 hours. Mind you, you had 8, you took your 2, you worked 3 more for your 11. After 8 in the sleeper berth, so you had 8 driving, 2 off duty, 3 more driving, 8 hours in the sleeper berth. When you come out of that sleeper berth time, after only 8 hours, you add the 3 hours, which is the gap between your 2-hour break and your 8-hour break. That's when your clock would have started, and you have 3 hours knocked off your 14 already. So you can already have 3 hours knocked off. So that's, in a nutshell, that's how that works. Go read the regulations and try to make sense of it. I'll try to do a YouTube video on that as well, because I think that is a very useful tool, the 8 and 2 split, and I think that's very misunderstood by a lot of people. And I don't even know, to be honest, I was just kind of spitballing there. I'm not even sure if I explained it right. So I do think it's very useful to understand the regulations. And on the YouTube side, name a small pour. You're a good dude, Kenny. I was extremely happy throughout my application process. While I went another route, I have recommended Patriot Star to quite a few owner-operators. Thank you very much for that. And I tell people all the time, I get people that call me asking questions, about coming on with me. They tell me what they're looking to do, and I've recommended other carriers myself. And I've even told people that if they go to another carrier, I will help them review the applications and review the contracts and things with another carrier. I've never had anybody take me up on it, because I'm sure that there's nobody would want to put me in that position, but I wouldn't mind. If somebody had questions about that, I would absolutely help review that. I don't want anybody to make any bad decisions. Do you need intrastate USDOT number for every state you run intrastate, like running from one side of Texas to the other? Not in every state. Most states do require a USDOT number. They use that number in their own systems, but not every state is on that so far. But the majority do, so I just, blanket statement, I say they all do. I don't know offhand which ones do not, because they change all the time. Okay, here's a good question. If you are leased to a carrier in a different state and they file IFTA, you have your state plate. Is there a site you need to put your numbers in for IRP? Does it go to the IFTA and the carrier's state? Okay, so your carrier, you can run your own IRP apportion tag, your own plate, and the carrier can do your IFTA. You do not have to be on the carrier's IFTA. They are two separate programs. Although the miles that you report for one should be identical to the miles you report for the other. So in a perfect world, the carrier should give that mileage report to the owner-operator so that when he files for his IRP, which is another tax return form, just like with IFTA, they're two separate programs, but they typically work in a similar way. They both ask for the miles for the time period. IRP is going to ask for a full year totaled, and IFTA asks each quarter. If you have the accounts together, if you're running both, you file separately. Typically, it's easier to just take your IFTA miles, calculate the totals, and fill out the application for your IRP. Some states even do that for you, and they'll send you your IRP renewals with the miles already filled out because they already have some of those forms. But if the carrier does it separately, the carrier will file on their IFTA. They should give the owner-operator those reports, and then the owner-operator should be able to take those miles and file for their IRP. Best place to get the lanes and rates information. There's a couple places that I look. First and foremost, overall 30,000-foot view is DAT trend lines. It's free for everyone. You don't have to have the DAT load board. So start with the DAT trend lines. Just Google that. That's going to give you the averages for each segment. They're going to show you the changes from the week prior. They're going to show you the fuel cost changes from the week prior. You can also click into the individual segments so you can see the vans in the regional. So they'll show you something on the West Coast, Southeast, Northeast, Midwest. They'll pick the highest city of those so you get an idea of what is going on in that city. That's the best free information that you can get. If you subscribe to any of the load boards, they all have a ton of information. The low-end load boards, you get what you pay for. I pay a lot of money. My level of DAT for a one-truck owner-operator would be $250 a month. I pay an additional $200 a month on top of that for the lates and rains information called, it's a standalone product called RateView. So essentially, I'm paying $450 a month for a load board. If I was a one-truck operation, I don't know that I could justify that cost. So but it's valuable to have it to see, and of course I use that information here on this show as well, but it's valuable to see where the lanes are, what the rates are paying, what the averages are paying. Again, the load boards on the lower level, you're going to get 90-day averages. When you start paying $100 or $149 a month, you start seeing 15-day averages. When there is ways to get 7-day averages. So as you pay for these different products, the more you pay, the more information you get. Now with my version, with the Rate View product, I can put in any two cities, origin, destination, and it will show me a 12-month average, a little graph, and it'll show me exactly what those rates have done over that 12-month period. And it'll show me the highs and lows, it'll show me the outliers, it'll show me everything. It's very useful information to have. Of course, you have, even on the lower end rate load boards, you're going to have your hot market maps. That's going to show you where the most loads versus trucks are. So, and they're usually just color coded. The lower end is going to show you state by state. The more expensive boards will show you, they'll show you just markets, regional markets, or for example, just the Chicago metro area or the Indianapolis metro area. Florida is divided into 5 or 6 different segments, so different things like that. And it'll show you how many loads versus how many trucks. That'll give you an indication of the average or the capacity in that area. Truckstop.com has similar features for $149, and I don't have the lower versions anymore. I have the highest versions of all of them. This is one of the things that I have discussed with DAT, is that I try to coach people on these products, but the lower levels are so different that it makes it difficult. And they're actually working on that. So if you have any of these load boards, over the next few months, they're going to be coming out with some features that will make the lower end more user-friendly, like the more expensive version. So stick with those. I don't even know if I was really supposed to say that. DAT was at my event, and they do support me. I don't get paid by them, but I do appreciate the help that they've given me over the years. All right. We are at the bottom of the hour. I do have quite a few comments here. A little bit talking about rates, so let's not get into rates right now. Let's see what else we've got on the Facebook side real quick. Okay, I see some comments here on the Facebook side asking about Patriot Star. If you have any questions or comments about our company, you can reach us at, find us in the Trucking with Authority Facebook group. That's one of the easiest ways to reach out to us. Or my catch-all email address, Elizabeth and I will get it.
Did you get that last call that you wanted me to screen?
Let me see if there's, Elizabeth says there's one more call.
Get Merwin, his questions about his LLC.
I didn't see that one.
Okay, let me see if I can get that for you.
Okay. Looks like we have 2 more calls. We'll get to those before we wrap things up.
I'm gonna call, but I'll try and send you the message of what it is.
Okay. All right. A couple more things and we'll wrap things up here. But if you have any questions about Patriot Star, I see Dave Casanova is he is here in the Trucking with Authority Facebook group on the chat. Dave has a YouTube channel of his own. He's revealed some of his numbers running a van under Patriot Star. If you want to check him out, it's Columbia Glider Dave on YouTube. He's got some information over there. It can kind of show you how that works. If you have any questions, he's in the chat over here. I'm sure he'll answer some questions for you. Or if you want to reach out to us, you can find us in the Trucking with Authority group. Elizabeth and I both moderate that group. Also, the Trucking Rates and Lanes group. That group is really taking off as rates have taken off as well. There's a lot of information about negotiations, dealing with brokers. You can find, there was another question over here about where to find information about that. That group's good resource to have if you have questions about what different brokers are doing or some of the habits and things that you're seeing out there. A good place to check is that group, Trucking Rates and Lanes. Elizabeth and I both moderate those groups or admin those groups. We started both of those. Check us out over there. You can find us, or if you want to reach out to us directly, our catch-all email address is patriotstar patriotstar.inc@gmail.com. So real simple, Patriot Star, just like the company name, Patriot Star Inc., like incorporated, all one word, patriotstar.inc@gmail.com. And that's kind of our catch-all email address. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us there. All right, a couple last phone calls. We're going to go to Ryan in Pennsylvania. Ryan, welcome to the show. How can we help you?
Evening, Ken. Evening, Ken. So the reason I was calling was I've been in the trucking industry. Actually, my family, we've been in the trucking industry for about 35 years. I've been in it since 2006. And, I've been watching this market as well. This was the market that I know of back in 2006. Actually, I see even a higher rates. So here's my
Thank you for
question.
using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
We're still on. We're still live here. Oh. All right. Well, we went an hour overtime, and they kicked us off here. So, Ryan, if you're still listening to the other feed, I'm sorry we lost you. So the Blog Talk feed has ended officially. With that, I think we'll just go ahead and wrap things up. I don't know that there's a whole lot more I've got here. All right. She said something about Merwin has a question. Got my LLC in Missouri, and now my business is based out of North Carolina. I don't want to run into issues with banks. Do you recommend doing a foreign on an LLC? Hate to make a new one. Don't want to lose the credentials. Okay. So you're moving to a new state. Because you're moving to a new state and your home office is actually moving, you'll start a new one and you'll close your old one. But because it's actually the same entity, and you're going to want to get with an accountant on this to make sure that everything transfers properly. But because it's the same entity, you're not going to file a foreign corporation because you're not foreign anymore. You're actually moving to that state. So you'll close your old LLC, start your new LLC in the new state, and your EIN number, your company is moving with you. So you don't have any issues with that, but you do want to contact an accountant. I don't know exactly what your situation is, depending on how everything is set up in your home state now. You may need to jump through some hoops. But it's fairly easy to just move to another state. If you're going to stay in your home state and maintain an office there, then filing a foreign corporation is not that big a deal either. That's something I am looking at doing possibly with my company as well. We're looking at possibly bringing on a second carrier to run as a sister carrier with Patriot Star, and we may incorporate that one in another state. For a few different reasons. We'll get into that on another show. It's not that complicated to do it, but keep in mind that whatever state you go to, you have to follow that state's income tax rules as well. So there's a lot of things that change from state to state. Insurance rates change, tax rates change, regulations change. Make sure that you stay on top of all of that and you understand what you're getting into before you jump. That being said, everybody, we have gone 2 hours on a show that I was thinking originally I might only do 30 minutes. This always happens. I just can't shut up. I appreciate all of you for your help and your input. When you keep calling, I keep talking, and thank you all. I hope that I gave us the best information I could possibly get out, and I'm sure that the more discussion we have, the more questions are raised. But again, this is a fantastic time to get into the industry. I think Ryan, who we lost on that last call there, I think he was getting into that. He's been into it he's been in the industry a long time. He's seen, the ebbs and flows of the business. He saw it in 2006. I know we did it again in 2014. It comes and goes. There's highs and lows. There always is in every business. Now we are in a peak. We are on a high. It's going to drop. Now is a good time to get in. If you're in, make good, wise decisions. Don't live beyond your means. Prepare for the downtimes. Put money aside for the rainy days. do the right thing. And every time we hit a high, once things start dipping down, a lot of people that overextended themselves start going out of business when the lows hit again. The lows will come. Hopefully it's far off as we can push it, but eventually things will level out and things will get low again. Things are good now. Make the best of it. Put money in the bank, and now's a good time to make all the investments you possibly can. Pad your savings accounts, pad your retirement accounts. Don't go out and buying new boats and Harleys and things like that, because this could last 6 months, this could last 6 years. We don't know. And until you are comfortable and understand what market we're in, don't overextend yourself. I'll leave you with that little bit of advice. With that, everyone, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Again, you can follow us on the Trucking with Authority Facebook groups or the Trucking with Authority Facebook or YouTube channel. You can also check us out on Blog Talk Radio at blogtalkradio.com/Trucking with Authority or truckingwithauthorityshow.com. As always, remember to dream big and aim high. Strategize your plan. Earn your success, because you don't deserve it, but you can earn it. And remember, only you drive you. Have a good night, everybody.